Hi, I'm Jim Paxson. Today we'll show you what it takes to raise a trout from a tiny little egg to a catchable sized fish, and just how innovative these hatchery folks are. Then we'll introduce you to a man who's transformed his love of fly fishing into art. All that and more right now on Arizona Wildlife Views.
Arizona Wildlife Views is brought to you by the sale of hunting and fishing licenses and the Heritage Fund, lottery dollars working for wildlife. Some projects made possible by the Sportfish and Wildlife Restoration Fund.
Welcome to our show. In Arizona, there are abundant opportunities to wet a hook. And thanks to our creative folks that run our state fish hatcheries, there's always plenty of fish to catch.
It's delivery day at the Tonto Creek Fish Hatchery.
Everybody wants to know where our broodstock is here. And when we explain to them that we don't actually have any broodstock, that we get all of our eggs FedExed overnight, we get a lot of funny looks. People can't imagine shipping fish eggs. There's the first tray of eggs. They arrived in very good shape. There was still ice left. They look good. The box hadn't been turned upside down. That's always a good start. This order should have been 203,000 from Ennis National Fish Hatchery in Montana. We're rehydrating the eggs right now. They'll sit in this water for 10 minutes just to get rehydrated, and then we will sample count the eggs so that we know how many eggs displace a certain volume of water so that we can enumerate the eggs.
After the sample count is taken, the eggs are disinfected against any pathogens they may have come in contact with. Next, they are transferred to the incubation room where they are first scooped into sifters.
Drain out as much water as we can, like so. Just try to get it to where it's not dripping very much. There's always a little bit of water on there you can't do much about. And then from here, they will go into the measuring cup, and we'll put the eggs into here until we get to 1,000 milliliters. This is where it gets time consuming when you have 350,000 eggs come in. That looks pretty good. And then now that we've got 1,000 milliliters in the measuring jar, then we pour them into the McDonald upwelling jar.
Once the eggs are evenly divided among the cylinders, circulation tubes are attached and the pressure is adjusted to give them just the right roll.
It's an eyeball thing. You don't want too much roll, but you want to have enough roll on the eggs so that there's not like dead spots that aren't circulating, because those eggs aren't getting any air or any oxygen in the water. So you can kill eggs by not having the right roll.
It takes about 10 days for the eggs to hatch. Then it's time to move them from the incubation tubes to the sack fry troughs.
After we pour them in here, most of the sack fry and the eggs are just sitting on top of the slotted screen. And it's almost kind of like you're panning for gold. You're just kind of sifting the sack fry through the screen, and they'll all fall through into the basket. After you get all the sack fry sifted through, you're left with just dead eggs and blanks in the basket here. And move that over to the next one, and then inside the basket here you've got all your sack fry.
The tiny trout will spend the next 2 weeks absorbing their yolk sac before they begin to swim to the surface looking for food.
We started feeding fish on Sunday, so 5 days ago. They started feeding pretty well, and They're pretty crowded in the baskets, so usually after about a week, once they start feeding pretty well, we go ahead and transfer them into the larger fiberglass tanks, give them a little bit more room, and at that point they really start growing quick.
They continue to grow in these indoor tanks for the next 5 to 6 months until it's time to move to the outdoor raceways.
Today we are moving our fingerlings outside to the outdoor raceways to complete the grow out process out there. We're going to move out 6 tanks, should be about 105,000 fish.
Once outside, the trout can grow almost 1 inch per month. Several more months pass and the young trout have grown so much they're getting crowded. So Bryce and his crew are splitting the raceway, meaning they move half the fish to another raceway to give them more room. Even though the temperature is freezing outside, the fish can't wait.
22! I don't know so much about the fish, but it's a little bit cold for us.
In 2015, Tonto Hatchery raised over 1 million trout, which is one reason this visitor keeps an eye on the process, hoping for an easy meal. Trout cannot reproduce in lakes or ponds because they require cold, clear-running perennial streams. So the vast majority of trout caught in Arizona's waters originate from one of the department's 6 hatcheries.
All right, we're done. Let's move 1,687 pounds. That's 21,000 fish. And they're split them evenly between the 2 raceways, so we've got 10,500 in each one. And they'll be in the raceway for another 6 months or so until they reach 10 inches. And then we'll stock them into the streams and lakes around the rim country here.
Raising trout is a year-round job, so the next time you catch a shiny rainbow, take a moment to think about the dedicated hatchery folks whose hard work made it all possible. Michael Johnson is an interesting guy. He's a former school teacher with a passion for loud music and fine fishing, especially fly fishing with a bamboo fly rod.
It's got soul, man. It may not be alive anymore, but it comes alive in your hand. When you stick a fish with a bamboo rod and you see that thing bend like, meow, and it comes alive and starts vibrating in your hand. That's nice in graphite too, but it just doesn't seem to transmit it. It's kind of a soul to soul thing. The soul of the fish to the soul of the rod to the soul of the angler. Give me bamboo, man.
Johnson also has a thing for electric guitars.
I like to make a lot of noise.
He built this beauty and he's teaching himself to play it.
It's easier to get good with a fly rod than it is to get good on a guitar. These little dots, these are power fibers. It's a magic material. It really is.
When he's not practicing power chords, he's working with power fibers. That's the stuff that gives bamboo its strength and flexibility.
I'm strengthening it, tempering the bamboo, it's making it stronger. It also plays a part in the finish of the rod. You get a nice mottled caramely color as opposed to a blonde rod, which is not flame. So I'm going to split this sucker in half right now.
Johnson's garage is his rod shop and the nerve center of Agua Fria Alchemy, the cottage industry where he transforms culms of bamboo into handcrafted split-cane bamboo fly rods.
Now I'm going to bust out these nodal dams.
It's a long, often tedious process, as you're about to see.
This next one's going to be 5, which will be 3 and 2. These marks are going to be part of the rod throughout the whole process. There's one. Well, if it's a 2-piece rod with 1 tip, it's going to take 12 pieces. This is a 3-piece rod, so I'll need 18. Taking a burnt crooked stick and turning it into a fishing pole? How would you do that? You know, a lot of hard work. We're going to scrape all the burnt residue off of there, and we're going to knock that ridge out and smooth it out. Get these nodal dams cleaned up and out of there. There's some stuff in here called lignin. When you heat it, it turns semi-liquid, and so that's what we're going to use to squeeze that and hopefully take a little bit of that bump out of there. It's a process of reduction when you're taking a stick that's about this thick and turning it into one that's about that thick.
After some rough planing, it's time for a bit more finesse. Johnson fine-tunes his planing form in tiny increments to define how much the rod he's working on will be tapered.
The blue tape indicates the numbers of the tapers.
The taper is key to how a rod performs.
We were fortunate that the people who came before us, the old dead guys, as we call them, have done the homework and come up with these tapers that work. And what you ideally want here is you want one continuous curl. How they did it, I have no idea. However, someone thought to bring 6 pieces of bamboo together and tapering equilateral triangles to make a fishing pole is beyond me, but I'm glad they did. This is really nothing but power fibers at this point that's in this little stick. It's remarkably strong stuff. Okay, here we go. So now I'm going to take the apexes off these. It'll give the glue somewhere to go. Half hitch. That's pretty damn good right there. Yeah, I like it. Okay, we're gonna hang it in the drying cabinet. Turn this light on. Close it up. We're gonna turn this on. I want to turn a cigar-shaped grip. Yeah, that feels good. Aesthetics are important. What colors are you going to use in wrapping your rod? What are you going to use for your reel seat? How is the fit and finish? Probably the most important thing is how well those ferrules are fit to the rod and fit to each other.
One of the final steps is dipping the rod into a tube full of varnish.
And it's pretty exciting to see it come out of the varnish and take the shine on. Here comes a guide out of there.
Johnson runs a pretty low-key operation. He says he builds about 6 rods a year, and it's most definitely a labor of love.
Because it's so darn tedious and painstaking, and it takes a long time to do, but in the end, it's worthwhile. You've got a fine fishing instrument that fishes as well as it looks, and it looks beautiful. And it's made out of a once living material. It's bamboo, man. And if you know, you know. If you don't, find out.
Every year, they flock to Verde Valley from all over the world. Some are young, some are old, but these birds of a feather have one thing in common. They love to birdwatch.
This is a western kingbird. It has the pale breast with the pretty bright yellow belly.
Since 2001, the Verde Valley Nature and Birding Festival has been bringing birders to Cottonwood, Arizona and Dead Horse State Park. They come here to encounter the birds that pass through every April on their migration route from the south to the north.
We have the Verde River Greenway, and the birds follow the Greenway in their migration. So we're right here on the river and on the Greenway, and it just passes up and the birds just follow it all along. And if you've ever gotten up in the air and you look down on here, the Verde River Greenway is just awesome looking because it's just this green patch that just runs right through our valley and right up north. So we're just fortunate. It's the right time and the right place.
So let the others come on up, everybody else come on up.
We started it 13 years ago. This is our 13th year. And every year we have approximately 172 different species of birds, which some people have never seen before. And they get all excited. They get out of their van after they've done the trip and they said, wow, you know, we saw this, we saw that. They just have a joyous time because we're on a migration route. And so this time of year, a lot of birds are migrating through. Of the 100 and some species that we see here, there are maybe only half or less that actually reside here. The rest of them are just passing through, and we're fortunate enough to catch them as they're passing through to go north.
So if that's the same two red tails that were soaring up here, that other hawk might still be with them, but I don't see any movement down low with them.
I've been coming over here for the Birdie Verde Festival. I'm thinking this is my 8th year. This is one of my favorite bird festivals. It's not one of the big, huge monster festivals, but there's a lot of good stuff here, a lot of good people come around.
I think a lot of people have this stereotyped image of what Arizona is like if they haven't been to Arizona previously, and they don't realize it's just not rock, sand, and desert. That Arizona is very diverse ecologically, and it actually has the 3rd highest species richness of birds in the United States, which is interesting because the 2 other states that have higher total number of species of birds both have ocean, Texas and California. We don't have a coast. And yet we have the 3rd highest number of bird species that can be found in the state, in the United States of America.
On the festival grounds, there are activities for birders of all ages. Kids get a chance to play games, engage in hands-on activities, and learn a little bit about wildlife.
He's got a really hard shell.
Why?
Well, you know, it helps protect him. So if something wants to eat him, he can hide in his shell, and then he won't get eaten.
You get a lot of vendors, anybody interested in optics or finding anything about birding. It's a good place to go to get your hands on and see what fits, see what binoculars fit you.
This event is really significant for us because it's our largest off-site event of the year, but this is an event where we can actually sell product, and so we bring all of our wares. And what it does is it fills 2 functions. It allows us to expose people to who Jay's Bird Barn is and where we are. So it's good publicity for us for one reason. Also, it allows a lot of people to have access to products that they maybe can't find anywhere else.
But these are the main reason people come to the festival. And with over 1,000 people in attendance, small birds can mean big money for communities like Cottonwood.
Well, I've seen people from Indiana today, I've seen people from Washington, D.C. today, I've seen people from Oregon, so we're seeing a lot of tourists and visitors. They might be RVers, they've also flown in, they've rented cars, they're staying in hotels, they're eating at the restaurants, and so it's called ecotourism. And it's very significant for small communities. As a birder myself, I often engage in going to other communities to birdwatch. And so I know what that economic impact is like because when I visit, for example, I went to South Texas a while ago. I stayed for a whole week. So I stayed in a hotel for a whole week. I rented a car. Of course, I had airfare, so I flew into an airport. I ate out meals. I paid entry fees to state parks, national parks. And so I contributed to the economy of those areas where I visited as a birder. And that really helps the local economy.
People come from everywhere, yes. all over the world. There's a couple from England here birding for the first time in the United States. And so almost everything is new to them.
We only arrived in the country on Tuesday night, and of course, and it's only just Thursday, but we've booked in a couple of trips, one tomorrow morning, one Saturday morning, and then the owls. And of course, I've just seen this fantastic owl, so it was worth coming all the way to see that, that owl up there. That's fantastic. We have barn owls, which I've seen quite often, but we have nothing as big as that. In fact, when the ranger said, you know, I can show you, what's it called, a great horned owl? I actually didn't believe him. I just didn't believe him. I thought it was a stuffed owl. But in fact, it's true, and it's just mind-blowing, really. It's just massive. You have bigger birds, well, you have bigger everything.
The birders start early each morning and gather for field trips that take them around the state. Some are headed to the Grand Canyon, others to the Vermilion Cliffs to see California condors. This group stopped at Bubbling Ponds and Arizona Game and Fish Department fish hatchery at Page Springs.
Well, there's some of the specialty birds like the common blackhawk. I mean, you're not going to find that at the Salton Sea or the Imperial Valley or San Diego or back on the East Coast, you know. So zone-tailed hawks running around here, and it's every place has their own special thing, you know. But here there's a lot of pretty cool birds. I mean, summer tanagers, holy smokes, that's about as bright as you get. The only competition they got is the vermilion flycatchers for intense reds, you know. And so just the color and everything else. And then there's, you know, the reptiles and the dragonflies and the flame skimmers and the damselflies and the, you know, lizards and snakes and the whole 9 yards. Or the bald eagle, you know. People don't expect to see a bald eagle. These folks come from back east or wherever, and bald eagles, yeah, but to see a bald eagle in this environment, that kind of surprised them maybe, you know.
Frightened, weak, and weary, this female mountain lion cub is in very bad shape. But thankfully, she's now in really good hands.
We're at the Adobe Mountain Wildlife Center. It's operated by the Arizona Game and Fish Department. And here we take care of sick, injured, orphaned, and sometimes confiscated wildlife of all types. This particular cub was severely emaciated, severely dehydrated, and it should have been with its mom.
But Mom was nowhere in sight when an animal control officer from the Tohono O'odham Nation found this young lion on tribal land in southeastern Arizona.
So a tribal officer with the animal control called the Adobe Mountain Wildlife Center and asked if we'd be willing to provide medical assistance to an injured mountain lion cub. We know a little bit about these cubs and their situation. One cub was found alive at the top of a tree and one was found deceased at the base. Yeah, the animal control officer with the nation believes that dogs or a dog killed one of the siblings. The fact that they weren't with their mom, and she's the provider still at this age, she's teaching them to hunt, she's providing them with food, and she wasn't.
Poor little guy is really thin. She should probably weigh at least 35 pounds, like you said.
Ann Justice Allen is a veterinarian and wildlife health specialist for Game and Fish. After sedating the lion cub, she conducts a thorough examination.
Yeah, see, you know, those are baby teeth, baby canines. Back on. It's approximately a 5 to 6 month old mountain lion, and she was very, very thin. She only weighed 13 pounds. She's probably should be a 30-pound animal, so she's emaciated. She didn't seem to be running a fever or anything and didn't have any signs of injury or disease. We gave her fluids, both under the skin and in the vein. Even though we've got her here and we've got her started on fluids, there's so many things that, first of all, we could not detect. We are doing some blood work on her to see how bad, say, her kidneys have been damaged by not being able to get anything to drink for several days. So we've got some blood work running on her, but there's just so many things that could still go wrong or be wrong. But I think she's got a pretty good chance of surviving.
Before the mountain lion cub wakes up, she's placed into a kennel where caregivers will begin nursing her back to health.
Yeah, she's starting to wake up. You can see because she's pulled her leg up. Hi, baby.
So right now this mountain lion cub is in guarded condition. So we're going to keep a real close eye on it, give it lots of food and water, do some blood tests to see if it has any health issues, and we'll address whatever issues might be there. I think the outcome looks pretty good.
So she has doubled her weight since she's been with us in 3 weeks. Isn't that amazing?
So ideally, we would return this mountain lion cub to the wild, but unfortunately, at 6 months old, it didn't have the skills it needed to survive. Mountain lion cubs typically spend the first year to 18 months with their mom, learning how to hunt, learning how to find water, just learning how to survive. If we would have returned this cub back to the wild, it would have died a slow death. Today's a great day. Once again, I think we're successful. We found it a great home, and it'll live a long life here Out of Africa.
Well, that's our show for today. For more information, please visit our website at azgfd.gov. For all the fine folks at Arizona Game and Fish, I'm Jim Paxson. We'll see you next time.